Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Soren Review. And today we're going to review the seventh race of the NASCAR Cup Series season for 2022 at Richmond. What a hectic race there at the end. This was definitely one of the most interesting races. I wouldn't consider this to be one of the better races of the year, but I definitely would not say that this was a terrible race by any means. It was 400 laps. We only had, I believe, five cautions. Yeah, only five cautions for 400 laps. This race really was fuel strategy, long green flag runs, and fuel strategy is what ended up deciding the winner. Denny Hamlin breaks a long streak for Toyota, I believe 12 races since Toyota's last one, and same thing for Joe Gibbs. And for Denny Hamlin, it's his first top 10, it's his first top 5, and his first win of the season for the 11 car. And this race really just was very textbook of what happens when you have long green flag runs and a lot of fuel strategy. And that's really what it came down to. The fuel strategy really made this race exciting. The first stage, of 70 lap stage, was not the greatest, but once we got into that 160 lap stage 2 and then that 170 lap stage 3, that's when it started picking up in excitement, and the end ended up coming with a pass with 5 to go, which allowed for Denny Hamlin to win. I'm going to briefly talk about the first half of this race, and then we're going to talk about the last stage. The first half was interesting. It was pretty much dominated by Ryan Blaney. He led a race high of 128 laps. He ended up coming home seventh. But it was mainly dominated by him in the first half, and he led the first half of stage 2 as well. And we got some varying strategy. Some guys decided to stay out. Denny Hamlin, Eric Almirola, Austin Dillon, Daniel Suarez, I believe, uh, were some of them. Kind of worked out for them. Oh, Christopher Bell was the other. Um, it kind of worked out for them, but in the end, Martin Truex Jr. at the end of stage 2 ended up winning. He had a really good race going, and entering the start of stage 3, it was believed to be Martin Truex Jr. who was probably going to win. It was very shaken up though at the beginning of stage 3. William Byron, Daniel Suarez, and Austin Dillon decided not or decided to not pit. This led, I believe they decided not to pit after a caution on stage 3. So stage 3 started. Cody Ware brought out a caution, and then everybody pitted except for those three cars. It ended up working out for them because had another caution after, I believe, Custer got into Cindric, and that allowed for William Byron to play an interesting strategy. We had two main strategies. It was either one stop and hope for the best. This was mainly done by Martin Truex Jr., along with other guys, I believe Logano, Bowman, Briscoe. And then there were other drivers who decided to go on two stops. Originally, William Byron, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute. Hamlin, Harvick, Larson, or not Larson, apologies, Hamlin, Harvick, Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, drivers like that. I say Byron because Byron's initial strategy was two stops. However, they waited a little too long for that second stop, and so what they decided to do is stretch it out on one stop. But the thing is, though, they had planned for two, so they pitted earlier. So they're the leaders, with Martin Truex Jr. in second and Kyle Larson with third. Truex and Larson are on that one-stop strategy, so they have much fresher tires than Byron. With about 20 or so to go, Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick, who are on that two-stop strategy, decide to start moving up through the field, and they were able to get past Truex, get past Larson, and with 5 to go, Denny Hamlin was able to pass William Byron for the lead very easily due to the pit stops and the way strategy worked out. So Denny Hamlin on that two stops, along with Kevin Harvick, were able to pass William Byron. Kevin Harvick was close on Denny Hamlin, only about 4/10 back, but was unable to catch him, and it allowed for Denny Hamlin to get his first win of the season. Let's look at the results. Denny Hamlin won this race. He did a very good job. They played some earlier strategy earlier, but in the end, Chris Gabehart and that 11 team at a Toyota dominated track were able to win. Just a real amazing win by this 11 team. They needed it. They needed something to turn this season around. Not a single top 10 in the first 6 races, but they come home with a win, lock themselves into the playoffs. For Hamlin now, I would just they no longer need to win. They just need to run, get some consistent results. Kevin Harvick as well. I believe he's up to 8th in the standings. Nice, solid run. We don't know what to expect from Harvick this season, but a nice second definitely helps that team. William Byron third, along with Truex and Larson. Kyle Larson breaks a finally gets a top 20 finish after finishing outside the top 20 for the last 3 weeks in a row. Christopher Bell gets a nice top 10. Again, another Toyota team. Him and Hamlin, of course, had a terrible start to their season, but Bell is recovering very nicely. Ryan Blaney 7th, Bowman 8th, Kyle Busch, and I want to talk about this in a moment, finishes 9th, and Austin Dillon grabs his third top 10 of the season. I want to talk about Kyle Busch really quick. They were on track for a 4th place finish, and based off everything, they probably would have finished they probably would have been in contention for the lead and for the win. However, Kyle Busch had a piece of tape on the grill, and with this new next gen car, you can no longer have tape on the grill, only on the brake ducts. And what happened was, it turns out that the 18 team put the piece of tape 200 laps prior to when NASCAR put the black flag on the 18 team. They had to come in and take it. They ended up recovering for a ninth place finish, but just really unfortunate for this 18 team. They basically, rules are rules, but they had to pit on the final uh, pit run or green flag run of the day, despite having that tape on for 200 laps. Just really unfortunate for this 18 team. Just not a great, uh, just a bit unfortunate. Other notables, Brad Keselowski gets a nice 13th place finish, so he needed that for that team. DNF's Greg Biffle unfortunately did not complete even 100 laps. Cody Ware, of course, had that accident. And Kurt Busch finishes 35th, 109 laps down. They had a mechanical issue on lap 10, had to go into the garage, fell over 100 laps down. Just not a good day for Kurt Busch. He falls, I believe, to 18th in the standings, so not a great run. I believe right now the current point situation is 2 drivers are locked into the playoffs that are not in the top 16. That's Austin Cindric, I believe, in 17th. Or not, or Cindric is barely locked in, if I recall. Denny Hamlin is the one that is not locked in. I believe he is 20th or so in the standings. That means that Austin Dillon, who is at 16th, is right now looking out. He is looking 16 points behind Daniel Suarez. Behind Dillon, Jones, Kurt Busch, and Chris Buescher are those 4 right outside the playoffs. Overall, I thought it was a solid race. I think this race proved a few things. It proved that you don't need cautions for a great race. Sometimes you do, but I think this, especially at a short track, and Richmond tends to do this, proved different pit strategies. I think this also proved, though, that Richmond does not need 2 dates. Richmond just, I wanted to give my opinion on whether it needed 2 dates prior or after the Gen 7 race. It just is Richmond. I don't think we should have 2 Richmond dates. I don't I'm not saying though that we shouldn't go to Richmond at all. I think Richmond is a great track on the schedule, especially with how much it wears tires out, but it needs one date, and that's later on in the year under the lights. That's my opinion. I think if we need another short track to replace it. We need to bring back Iowa or go to IRP or Nashville Fairgrounds, North Wilkesboro. Just any other short track would be sufficient. Um, but we do not need two Richmond dates. We'll see how that goes. I think that we may lose a Richmond date with Richmond getting pushed to August in the afternoon, which is a very, very strange choice. I have a feeling you may see Richmond lose a date. I don't know though. Overall, though, good race. I'm going to have to give this race a 7.5 out of 10. Not a bad race, but, it's definitely not as good as Auto Club or Las Vegas or Daytona early on in the season, but an overall a solid race nonetheless. That's going to do it though for this video. Remember, you can use code Soren72 at checkout on Circle B Diecast for all orders $20 or more. You get free shipping. That's code Soren72. April is upon us. Later this month, lots of new diecast releases. Make sure to use code Soren72 when buying your diecast at Circle B. Also, follow me on Twitter if you want at Review Soren. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and goodbye.